Hello, this is Dr. Scott Wengert, occupational therapist, and I'm going to be teaching on the soul approach, my soul approach to incorporating spirituality in occupational therapy practice. I've got a simple background here, try to keep it simple for cognitive load purposes, and I'm going to share my screen. I've got a PowerPoint here. I know I've only got 6 minutes, so I'll start all over. All right, so let's share the screen here with my PowerPoint on my soul method. I'm working on making it a model. It is not yet a model, so it hopefully will be one day. But we talk about spirituality in OT practice, and here are the objectives. Some of them are included ACOTE standards, but SOUL is an acronym that I've created, and I've done so over the years in my practice. And just as I've worked with patients and incorporating spirituality. Soul stands for spirituality, occupation, understanding, and liberty. And when I teach spirituality, I just walk through this acronym. I teach on spirituality, what it is, how it impacts the provision of OT services. We'll go on to occupation, how it impacts occupation, occupational engagement, the plan of care, and all that. We talk about understanding, how we want to understand our patient's spirituality and how it impacts their values and beliefs, what brings purpose and meaning to their life, and how it impacts the plan of care. The more I understand them, the better I can help serve them and help them accomplish their goals. And liberty. I want them to have the liberty to be who they are and have the spirituality that they have. Not my spirituality, but their spirituality. So I'd like to start off with a question. Is this topic taboo? Can we even talk about this? Today, that sounds kind of like a silly question, but it depending on my audience, it's a really good question. People who are older and been practicing a while, when I share this with them, that's a great question. And I get discussion and feedback from them. Should we talk about this? And some of them, because back if you've been practicing a while, like I was an OT before the practice framework came out. So we didn't talk about spirituality back in the 90s. 1996 is when I graduated from Rockhurst College with my master's in OT, started my practice. And I was at a Catholic Christian university, and I even have a bachelor's degree in theology. But during the OT program, there was this separation between science and religion and spirituality, and never the two shall mix, right? So I didn't know if we were allowed to even talk about it. And so older practitioners can totally relate to that. And students today, I was teaching this recently to a university, to an OT program, and it's part of the framework. They know they know we can talk about it. So I'm really glad that now we can talk about it because it wasn't that long ago till we really didn't. And over the years, many OTs and CODAs have struggled with, can I address this or not? And how do I address it? So that's why I asked that question. And it's fun to hear feedback. And I like to show this slide because this is a very up-to-date, the data on religious affiliation in America. Most people are in the blue or the orange, right? And so they're in some kind of they adhere to or identify with some kind of a religious tradition. So we're most of the people we encounter and engage in therapy practice adhere to some kind of a religion, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, whatever, Buddhism, what have you. And then the rest of the folks we see may not be particularly religious or identify to a particular religion, but they're still spiritual, and I'll explain what I mean by that. But in the research, the majority of people really want, and this according to this Taylor study, and this is a dated study, no doubt. There's just not a lot of research on this topic, and so this is some older data, but I think it's still relevant today that the majority of the people that we see, three-quarters of the people that we see, for example, in this study, would like for their physician to consider their spiritual needs, and even nearly half of them would like their physicians to pray with them, which that was a very surprising statistic for me. So I like to ask this question as well: why don't we address spirituality in our practice? And Um, I receive feedback and interact with the audience on this one if it's relevant. And so the two main reasons why physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists don't address spirituality. Number one is many of them aren't sure what it is, what's the definition of it. And the second one is they don't feel that they are equipped to address it in their practice. And so this is when I go to the group activity. I break them down into small groups of like 4 or 5 students, and I say, take 2 minutes and come up with your definition, if you will, of spirituality. And so they break into small groups, they come up with a definition, and when they come back together, I get the definition from each of the small groups. So they have a chance to participate in that small group together and be creative and interactive. And I get awesome definitions. I get some awesome responses from these groups because, of course, OT students are amazing. And then I begin to walk through spirituality, and I'm almost out of time already. Spirituality is a deep experience of meaning brought about by engaging in occupations that involve the enacting of personal values and beliefs, reflection and intention within a supportive contextual environment. I offer some other descriptions of spirituality, and then I go on to teach um, about spirituality. We talk about culture, and we really want to practically apply this to how a person's spirituality, where they derive meaning, belonging, love, community, where they connect with the supernatural, the divine, God, all that. And we walk through how that impacts the plan of care, how that impacts what they want to accomplish, how that impacts the goals that we write, and what we're shooting for. And I get to the end of my PowerPoint. I walk through a lot of things, and I get to my PowerPoint, and I walk through the soul method one more time, and I give them some examples of questions to ask their patients. I don't want this to take a lot of time. They've got a lot of other things to worry about when they're working with their clients, right? But I give them very quick and dirty, step-by-step example of for spirituality, a couple of questions. What source of meaning do you have in your life? What do you have a source of spirituality? And they walk through the acronym SOUL with their patient to gather some information, and that helps shape their plan of care and how they interact. And this is an ongoing thing as they work with their patients. So the OT and the CODA can work with the patient. The PT can do this too, the PT assistant. This is uh, an ongoing gathering of information, and it will feed really inform the plan of care, and it will help us to make sure that we're tracking on accomplishing goals that are relevant and that are meaningful and purposeful to our client. All right, last thing is this slide here. I put this in here knowing that it's cognitive overload and it's busy, but it's a cool slide anyway. But it's an example of too much going on, but I like it. So there, I can't help it. All right, thank you. Love you. Bless you. Thank you. Bye-bye.